The video is just plain disturbing to watch. A 16-year-old beaten in the bathroom of her high school in Delaware. And Amy Joyner Francis, she didn't make it out there alive. An autopsy found she had a rare undiagnosed heart condition, which was aggravated by the physical and emotional stress caused by the attack. 3 teenagers, who were all 16 at the time of the fight, were arrested and charged as juveniles in her death. And now, after a non-jury trial, a judge has found today one of those teens guilty of criminally negligent homicide, another who kicked Joyner Francis while she was down on the ground was convicted of conspiracy charges. The judge acquitted the 3rd girl of any charges, saying there was no evidence she played a role in the beatdown. Amy Joyner Francis's family, they were actually satisfied with the decision.
At the end of the day, you cannot brutalize someone, pummel someone in the bathroom and lead to their death, and there's no consequence for that action.
So Joey Jackson, the main defense here was she didn't cause the death. She didn't know about this.
Falls on deaf ears, Gene, and here's why. You know, we all learn about something in law school called the thin skull plaintiff, right? And that's a person or a victim who they may have some pre-existing condition. But the fact that she had some heart condition doesn't excuse your conduct, which ultimately led to her death. And so this case was as much about what we saw, the videotapes and the facts, as about the law, because the defense's argument was, wait a second, you can't hold her accountable for killing her as a result of this pre-existing condition. And the judge said, no, of course you can, because it was your gross deviation from the standard of care by attacking her in that way that ultimately led to the death. And just to be clear for the viewers, of course, there's a distinction between murder, which is the intentional act to kill someone, and when you engage in conduct, which is likely to cause the result, even though, Gene, you didn't mean to do it. And that's where you get the criminally negligent homicide.
That's right. Criminal negligence that caused the death, though, right?
Yeah.
Brian, let me ask you this. They were tried as juveniles. All right, so it's not a conviction. It's that she was determined to be responsible. Should they have been tried as an adult? And what should the punishment be? Because she's a juvenile, and I'm talking about the main girl here. It can be nothing. It can be like a probation. It can be like a supervision. It can be in jail for a little bit of time. What does she deserve?
Well, I'm on the fence with this because I think young adults deserve a chance for rehabilitation. And this is a horrible tragedy. And I think this young woman should be held responsible for the death. But I think maybe a few years of incarceration and then given an opportunity to rehabilitate and live a more productive life and use this as a platform then maybe to prevent bullying in the future.
Carl, you were in the courtroom. What's the demeanor that you saw from these young girls?
There was very little observable reaction from any of the girls.
Really? So they didn't seem sad, remorseful?
I can't comment on that. I can't determine whether they were sad based upon no reaction.
So no reaction is a reaction. No reaction at all. Joey, what do you think?
You know, listen, a lot of times children, not that this excuses it at all, but they know not what they do. I mean, I'm certain they didn't mean to kill, or at least I should say her, because the other one was acquitted. The second one found responsible for conspiracy, but not convicted of it. But, you know, children do things that adults ultimately do not, and they just don't understand the severity and the significance and what it could lead to. And in this case, it led to their death. And so, but you have to wonder, you know, we're talking about all these stories. The first story involving, you know, someone who kills someone who's a young child. These kids are young. What are our young people doing? What is the larger issue that's causing beatdowns in bathrooms?
So how do you stop it but have a sentence that can deter?
That's a great point. It's a great point. And, you know, as a society, we have to determine, what do we do with children? Juvenile and the whole system of justice there, Gene, is to rehabilitate, because you think there's a redeeming quality. These kids are young. They've got a long way to go. You can't throw them away forever. And to the extent that they'll be out in society, you want them to be productive and you want them to lead lives that'll be law-abiding, significant, and contributory to society.
You know, I want to read to you what the judge said, because I think this is important before we leave this. The verdict this was a bench trial, and the judge said, quote, the attack on Amy Joyner Francis had known potential consequences and risks. I purposefully used the word attack because that is what the evidence established. Even reasonable 16-year-olds have standards. Trinity Carr's attack on Amy Joyner Francis and her failure to perceive the risk of death is a gross deviation from the standard. And that judge also said it was a brutal attack.